that the federal government pay local government funds directly to local governments. I wanted to find out what your position is on that.
Well, the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation sued me, the Attorney General of Edo State, and also sued all 36 attorneys general on behalf of states. We raised preliminary objections and we contended that the Supreme Court did not have jurisdiction. It could not exercise original jurisdiction to get that matter. And in any case, it has settled that matter. Don't forget that several years ago, the Attorney General of Lagos State took the Attorney General of Federation to court. Then President Obasanjo was president of Nigeria, and the current incumbent president was the governor of Lagos State. That case, Lagos State against Federation, has not been overruled. It was not overruled now. And basically says under any guise that there is no way that funds due to the state, to local government be paid to any other person but through the states as established by the Constitution. As far as we're concerned, the Constitution was very clear on that point. And it says there shall be established an account known as state local government joint account. It's there, it's still there in the Constitution. It will appear that the Supreme Court was in its interpretative role, and the issue is are they fallible because they are final, or they are final? So that makes them infallible. They have given their judgment. We are all bound by that, and there are practical issues to the enforcement of that judgment. Serious practical issues. Some states, including mine, those states, have set up a committee to see how we can best approach this transition, how we can best comply with the judgment of the court, because the Supreme Court, it has given its judgment, it's final, and there's nothing we can do about that. But as I said, the court did not, and by the way, it's a majority, not a unanimous decision. The court did not overrule, so that law is still in that case law is still in a law reports, and so is this one. So it will appear the two conflicting decisions on the subject matter now. We hope that in the near future that can be taken again before the Supreme Court, so the Supreme Court can now look at both, examine both. The case of Attorney General of Lagos State against Federation was cited to the my laws, but they had the majority had a different view. I also cited the case of Attorney General of Bauchi State against the Attorney General of Federation, which says when it has to do with such revenues that the courts cannot exercise original jurisdiction under Section 251 of the Constitution, that is the subject matter exclusively given to the Federal High Court. So, but this was not considered, was not mentioned or referred to in the judgment, the majority judgment, and they felt that we're bound by it. They can actually go. And don't forget that we submitted that for you to overrule a previous decision such as this, you have to expressly ask for it. We raised that issue, but the courts did not consider it. But now we are bound by what the Supreme Court has done. We now have to go to practical issues. Some states, like Lagos State, like Edo State, did not already. They have elected representatives in place. The governors and the chairman and councillors, chairman of all 18 local governments in states and all councils are elected. So we have democratically elected. So we have complied with the Constitution. Several states complied with the Constitution. Some states said no. We can't comply because there are injunctions, at least 2-3 states, like Anambra, I think, there are injunctions against our conduct of elections. So it will be going contrary to these injunctions, and contrary to the rule of law. If we contravene these elections, these injunctions, go ahead to conduct elections. So that's a challenge. Some other states, I think Kebbi and one or two, I said, the security situation in Atlanta will not permit us, will not allow us, will be exposing our staff, our officials, and the voters to danger because of the security situation in our respective states. So because of that, we don't think we can at this time conduct it. But those things were considered. The Supreme Court has given its verdict. Now, those states that don't have elected representatives now have to go. The Constitution said they will not go, they cannot get money unless and until they have now gotten elected representatives. Now, don't forget that the provisions of any conduct of elections are similar to what should happen in the area council of the FCT. That is part of the Electoral Act. The local governments are bound by the provisions, the CX are bound by the provisions of the Electoral Act in terms of procedure for conduct of elections. Now, the Electoral Act says there should be 360 days. That's almost 1 year notice given, minimum 1 year notice given for the conduct of elections. So any state preparing now has to give that 360 days notice. So what it means, basically, if you take things literally, is that the funds for those local governments will be withheld from the local governments and the states. So for the next 1 year, all those people who are dependent, like who are employed by the local government service commission, are not likely to get paid because monies will not be released for that. Teachers will not get paid. Teachers in the primary systems. Those who work in primary health care, some states have contributions by the state government and local government. That means they're not likely to have that. These are some practical issues, and that's why the federal government has set up a committee to look at how the government, how we're going to enforce that judgment, and some states, including Edo, have set up their own committees to ensure that it's done. These are some of the practical issues and fallouts of that judgment that have to be looked into, and it's a dicey situation, quite honestly. But I think we'll overcome it.
Okay, so if I hear you very correctly now, you've highlighted, some of why this thing is not going to be practicable. But before this judgment, how was the state administering local government administration in your state?
Good. I am happy you limited it to my state. Now, in accordance with this constitution, because it says clearly, funds due to the local government shall be paid into an account known as the Edo State Local Government Joint Account. So we opened that account, but it was being operated by the local governments themselves. The funds going to local, we are given to the local governments. In fact, I digress for a couple of seconds. The state government supports the local government in achieving all they can do, because local governments, both from the federal allocation and the IGR, cannot. It's difficult for them to cope. It's not sufficient funds. So very often states support these local governments. And don't forget, local governments are not a federating unit. There are only two federating units in our constitution. That is the federal government and in the state government. State governments, therefore, as to where issues with the states deal with local governments. But in any case, in our own case, we set up this account. The governor, who's represented by the Commissioner for Local Governments, now oversees this distribution of the funds due. The state government does not take any. What it does is that the joint account, now first line charge, you pay the teachers, you pay the medical personnel in primary healthcare systems, you pay pensioners. And we have been owing, there's legacy debts being owed to pensioners, and the government of Governor Basque has cleared most of those debts, but we're still, because it's such a humongous sum, we've been paying them by bits, so we've almost cleared the whole thing now. So we pay these things to us almost as a first line charge. Let us make these payments, and then the others are released by the local government, who take it to their accounts and do as they please with that. So that's the committee set up between the local governments and the state government to sit down and work things out, and then they operate those accounts and sign off on them. They operate those accounts just like the fact the state government commissioners for finance go to federation every month, sit down with the minister of finance and sort out what is due to states and this. That's exactly what we have been doing in Edo State. Some states have used that. It's possible that some other states have not used that system and probably have dipped their hands into the coffers of the local governments. Maybe that's why the Supreme Court, and I think Supreme Court said so. Supreme Court had previously said, and we all agree with that, that the Constitution requires that local governments, the representative local governments, should be democratically elected. So many Supreme Court decisions on that. So there's nothing new in that regard. But this time it went one step forward and said that, contrary to its previous decision, that they must be paid directly, and which we believe. If you go back, sit down, read the Constitution, it's well, but in their interpretative role, they have interpreted contrary to the plain and ordinary language of the Constitution. So that's where we're at.